In Russia, a major who directed airstrikes on Mariupol in 2022 has been eliminated. The next round of negotiations is already scheduled for Monday. Trump and Zelensky are calling on Putin to come in person. Ukrainian drones are powerfully attacking Moscow. Russia threatens to strike Berlin if German Taurus missiles are launched at Moscow. Russian occupiers are making advances in the Donbass. Zelensky accused China of military cooperation with Russia and criticized Trump for his passivity. Shocking video. In Switzerland, a glacier descended from the mountains and covered an entire village. Hello, my name is Yulia Kokan. Subscribe to our channel. Here you'll find only truthful news, and like this video if you support Ukraine. Operation Liquidation in Russia. In Stavropol, Major Zaur Gortsiev, who was involved in the bombings of Mariupol, was blown up. He died on the spot from a grenade explosion. Investigators are not ruling out a Ukrainian connection. In Ukraine, however, the operation has not yet been confirmed. Zaur Gortsiev was in charge of the air component of the operation to capture Mariupol, and therefore bears responsibility for the mass civilian casualties. He also simultaneously served as the deputy head of Stavropol. Russians report that the suspect is a certain Mikita Penkov, who lived in the same building. According to Russian law enforcement, Penkov was a suicide bomber who knew he was carrying a bomb in his bag and detonated it himself when he got as close as possible to Gortsiev. I hope that sooner or later every Russian war criminal will meet the same fate. A new round of negotiations, this time involving the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, is being prepared in the near future. The day before, Trump's special representative Keith Kellogg announced that Zelensky, Putin, and Trump might sit down at the negotiating table since the United States has received a list of conditions for a peace agreement from Ukraine and is now waiting for them from Russia.
Once we receive their letter, we will put everything together and there will be a new meeting. We believe that it will take place in Geneva. We wanted to hold it in the Vatican, and we were ready to do so. But the Russians did not want to go to the Vatican, so I think Geneva will be next. Then perhaps all three leaders of the parties will gather.
It is in Geneva, according to Kellogg, that the three parties may reach an agreement and sign a document that will put an end to the war. Accordingly, after this, everyone was waiting for a response from Ukraine and Russia. President Zelensky stated that he is ready for a meeting in any format.
We are ready to meet at the level of leaders, and the American side knows this, and the Russian side knows this as well. We are ready for the Trump-Putin format. We are ready for the Trump-Putin format, the Trump-Zelensky format, and then for a meeting of all three. If Putin is uncomfortable with a bilateral meeting, or if everyone wants it to be a trilateral meeting, it doesn't matter to me. I'm ready for any format.
He also mentioned that several venues are being considered for further negotiations between Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. In addition to Istanbul, where the parties met last time, Switzerland and the Vatican are also being considered as options. Later, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov announced that the meeting would indeed take place on June 2nd.
The Russian side, as agreed, promptly prepared the relevant memorandum, which sets out our position on all aspects of reliably overcoming the root causes of the crisis. Our delegation, headed by Vladimir Medinsky, is ready to present this memorandum to the Ukrainian delegation and provide the necessary explanations during the second round of renewed direct negotiations in Istanbul this coming Monday, June 2nd.
And as stated by Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, he handed over to the Russian side a Ukrainian document regarding a ceasefire. And Ukraine expects a similar document from Russia no later than that same June 2nd. However, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha believes that this can be done earlier.
Why wait until Monday if the Russians have finally prepared their memorandum? After 10 days of deliberation and strikes against Ukraine, it can be handed over to us immediately. We expect that the Russian side will not disrupt the next meeting and will promptly submit their proposals for our consideration as was previously agreed.
However, it is unlikely that the meeting in Istanbul on June 2nd will be at the level of the leaders. Most likely the format will be the same as last time. What do you think? Will Putin dare to personally come to Istanbul for negotiations with Zelensky and Trump? And will these negotiations even take place at all? Write your opinion in the comments. China has stopped selling the popular Mavic drones to Ukraine while continuing to supply them to Russia. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky said this in an interview with the German TV channel RTL.
The Chinese Mavic is available to Russians but closed off to Ukrainians. There are production lines operating on Russian territory where Chinese representatives are present.
In addition, Zelensky told German journalists that Ukraine will definitely achieve a just peace. But most likely this will only happen after Putin's regime in Russia comes to an end.
A just peace is inevitable. Most likely it will come after Putin. But peace, which could begin with a ceasefire and then move step by step toward lasting peace, could start as soon as tomorrow.
At the same time, there is currently no sign that the Russians are ready for peace talks or to end the war. And as Zelensky says, the partners are not sufficiently involved in the peace process.
Narrator, I still don't see any willingness or desire from the Russians to take this step. I don't see any readiness from Putin to end the war. I don't feel it. And we don't have enough pressure. There isn't enough force involved to make him do it. Today, the strong leading countries are still not fully engaged. The United States is involved, but not 100%. Other countries like China or the states of the global south are staying on the sidelines. This allows Putin to postpone the moment when the war must end.
Correspondent. Zelensky expressed his conviction that the United States is, quote, one of those countries that can put Russia in its place, given their economic, financial, and military capabilities. And the Ukrainian president would also like Germany to be present at the table of potential peace talks to end Russia's war against Ukraine. Do you agree with the views of the president of Ukraine? Share your comments. And now to the situation on the front. The Russian army is already prepared to attack the Sumy region. They have concentrated a sufficient number of forces near the border. This was stated by the spokesperson of the State Border Guard Service, Demchenko.
State Border Guard Service spokesperson, the enemy really does have such a large number of their forces and resources, both in terms of personnel and equipment. And within the Kursk region, we periodically observe certain changes, perhaps in the number of enemy servicemen and actually equipment in this sector. But again, the enemy currently has enough forces stationed there to carry out various actions against our border and even to attempt an attack on Ukrainian territory if the opportunity arises.
Correspondent? At the same time, the commander of the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, Maxim Zhorin, says that the Russians do not have enough resources to fully capture the region. However, the risks remain high nonetheless.
The situation on the border of Sumy and Kharkiv regions must be taken as seriously as possible. It is clear that the forces Russia has amassed are not enough to capture all the regions or regional centers. Their objective is most likely simply to penetrate deeper into the territory and use this, including as leverage in negotiations. They will claim that they could have taken the entire region, but simply chose not to. At the moment, I do not see a critical amount of forces and resources. But the issue now is not how many kilometers they will advance. This will simply add 2 more regions to their agenda.
And now about the situation directly on the line of contact. The occupiers have advanced near Chasiv Yar, Toretsk, and Pokrovsk. This is reported by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War. According to the military themselves, the Russians are using various tactics in this direction.
In our area of responsibility, they have been storming us a bit less. It's clear that they can't break through our defenses with sheer numbers, so they've started working differently. A lot of glide bombs have come in. They've also started using even more FPV drones. At the same time, they're using artillery. We're operating our drones 24/7. We keep our positions under control.
At the same time, Ukraine has once again attacked Russia with drones. A fire is raging at the Avangard plant in St. Petersburg, which produces microelectronics. This plant is of strategic importance and specializes in the production of radio electronics, microchips, and devices. The Moscow region was also attacked again. Explosions were heard in Odintsovo, near Moscow. But But very soon, there will be even more such explosions, and they will be more powerful than those caused by drones. Germany will finance the production of long-range weapons in Ukraine, which will have a range of 2,500 kilometers. And most interestingly, the first systems could be deployed in the coming weeks. And this is not just a media rumor, but an agreement that was already signed during Zelensky's visit to Berlin. Importantly, as the German Ministry of Defense later stated, German long-range missiles could be in Ukraine within a few weeks. However, they did not specify exactly what kind of long-range weapon this is, or whether these are Taurus missiles. But interestingly, at the moment, there are no other alternatives to this.
Germany will finance the production of long-range weapon systems in Ukraine. This agreement is also based on Germany's commitment to directly invest in Ukraine's defense industry, which has available capacity as well as the technical knowledge and skills necessary to produce modern systems. A significant amount of these long-range weapons is expected to be produced as early as 2025. The armed forces of Ukraine will be able to use these systems soon. The first of them could be deployed in the coming weeks.
As expected, there is panic in the Kremlin, and the Russian reaction to the possible transfer of Taurus missiles is classic: threats to strike Berlin.
Russia is ready to shoot down German Taurus missiles and strike the locations from which they were launched and where they were brought from.
Interestingly, there will be no official announcement or media coverage of the transfer of Taurus missiles to Ukraine. So it's entirely possible that we already have the missiles. Do you believe that the Taurus missiles will actually fly to Moscow? Share your thoughts in the comments.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Russia will not be able to fight the West on its own in 4 to 6 years. This was stated by Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation of the National Security and Defense Council, while commenting on Western media reports about the Kremlin preparing for a world war.
When the German Spiegel writes that the Kremlin is preparing for a world war, I once again see that Europe does not understand anything about the real threats. And these threats are not so much in the Russian army or weapons themselves. Moscow will not have the resources to fight on its own, even in 4 to 6 years. The main threat is the Russian army, which may include troops from North Korea, as well as the development of drones with Chinese artificial intelligence and other types of weaponry. The emphasis is on quantity, which Russia can only achieve with the support of third countries as well as changes within their army.
Let me remind you, the German magazine Spiegel, citing satellite images and intelligence data, reported that Russia is carrying out a large-scale modernization of its military infrastructure, which may indicate preparations for a potential global conflict. In addition, the Institute for the Study of War reported that Russia is preparing for a protracted war against Ukraine and possibly for a future conflict with NATO. Analysts explained their assessments by pointing to Moscow's efforts to increase the production of drones and missiles, as well as the rhetoric of the Russian authorities. And what do you think? Is Russia really preparing for a future conflict with NATO, and does it have enough resources? Share your thoughts in the comments. Russian intelligence agencies have created fake organizations to substitute for the International Committee of the Red Cross. They are simulating humanitarian missions in places where Ukrainian prisoners are being held. This was reported by the main intelligence directorate. Russia uses these organizations as an argument to prevent international human rights organizations from accessing those locations.
As of today, there is information about 186 locations where Ukrainian prisoners are being held, to which the Russians do not allow representatives of the Red Cross or other monitoring missions.
According to the main intelligence directorate, the Russians use such fake organizations to spread propaganda and to collect confidential information from the relatives and loved ones of Ukrainians who are in captivity. Therefore, the main intelligence directorate urges the families of prisoners to contact only Ukrainian state authorities.
That is why families of prisoners should contact only Ukrainian state authorities and under no circumstances trust the pocket organizations of Russian special services, regardless of their name or declared objectives. Any information passed to the enemy will inevitably be used against Ukraine and its citizens. The Coordination Headquarters for the Treatment of Prisoners of War is the only body authorized to conduct negotiations and organize the return of Ukrainian captives.
Announcer. Russia has attacked Ukraine with a new type of strike jet UAV, the Dan-M. This was stated by radio technology specialist Serhiy Beskresnov, better known as Serhiy Flesh. According to him, the Dan-M is a jet target drone used for air defense training and testing, which the Russians have converted into a strike UAV. The flight time of such a drone is 25 to 40 minutes. Its speed is 400 to 750 kilometers per hour. The flight altitude is up to 9 kilometers.
Serhiy Flesh. This morning, the enemy attacked us with a new type of jet-powered strike UAV, the Dan-M. These UAVs were launched in a group from Crimea. Similarly, at the beginning of the war, we converted Strij jet-powered UAVs, but we did this because we lacked cruise missiles and long-range strike UAVs. But why Russia made this modification is unclear. Perhaps it's simply because they have a large number of these UAVs. Originally, the target drone was red, but in this case, its body color has been changed. For reasons of information security, I cannot disclose the fate of this group of strike UAVs.
Narrator, what do you think? What other surprises are the Russians preparing for us? And do they have many similar developments ready? Write your thoughts. Narrator, in the Swiss Alps, the Berchtesgadener glacier collapsed, burying an entire village beneath it. A massive amount of ice and rocks almost completely destroyed the mountain village of Blatten. There are people missing. 90% of the locals ended up under the rubble. Footage of this devastating disaster is spreading online. See for yourself. The media reports that a week and a half before the disaster, 300 residents were evacuated after the first landslides. Currently, one person is missing. It is unknown what exactly triggered the massive collapse. However, experts emphasize that the scale of the damage in Blatten is the largest in the past 100 years. At the same time, the Regional Security Service warns that the situation in the Swiss Alps remains critical. Experts are concerned that the debris has blocked a nearby river. This has led to the formation of a new lake and the threat of flooding, which could become a serious problem, as up to 1 million cubic meters of water accumulates here every day. It seems that people in Russia are starting to realize and suspect where their men are disappearing to. A video from Rostov is going viral online. The man in the video says that the local crematoriums are working non-stop and explains why.
Residents of the Myasnikovsky district complain that the crematorium is operating at such capacity that they are suffocating, they have nothing to breathe. And they send videos showing what the chimneys look like. When Hitler was burning people in ovens, probably even then it wasn't like this. Look, the chimneys are literally glowing hot. And I'm curious, do urns with ashes actually get sent to Russians? Or are these unaccounted bodies being burned? Who is being burned at night at such a terrifying speed that the chimneys get this hot?
And these are in fact shots from those very crematoriums.
Residents say they operate around the clock, non-stop, burning and burning and burning, and people are suffocating, and there's a constant lingering stench hanging over the neighborhood of burned bodies.
And what do you think? Are they really burning their own? A video from Germany has appeared online. A guy is filming Germans' reactions on camera to the actual minimum pension in Ukraine, which is 50 euros.
In euros, right? Or?
Yes, in euros. Approximately.
1,000.
70 euros.
50 euros?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
Oh, wow. On average?
Approximately.
300 euros?
A little less.
Still less?
Mm-hmm.
200 euros?
A little less.
Oh, no. Really?
I should note that the average pension in Germany is about 1,400 euros per month. At the same time, the minimum pension is about 520 euros, which is 10.5 times more than in Ukraine. In 2025, the minimum pension in Ukraine is 2,361 hryvnias. Well, what can I say? Our Ukrainian pensions are just a drop in the ocean. I honestly don't know how Ukrainian pensioners manage to survive on them. It's sad, very sad. If you're watching us from outside Ukraine, how long could you live on 50 euros in your country? Please write in the comments. It'll be interesting to read. Please like this video to support what we're doing, and be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss our next episodes. That's all from me for now. See you next time.